Okay, to get to the ball joint, we got to zip this tire off of here. So we'll start with a 19mm and an air gun. Once you got the tire off, you're going to want to take the caliper off. Looks like these are 17, so we'll grab a 17 and get that off of there. Then we're going to take the rotor off. 2 Phillips holding down this rotor. And then once you get that off, you can do the tie rod, also a 17, upper control arm. Just the ball joint needs to come out as a 17 as well. Then, this guy, the axle nut, we're going to want to take this spindle off, then go put it in the press and get this ball joint out of here. Alright, before we get this caliper bracket off here, I want to show you this ball joint. As you can see, there's quite a bit of movement, bit of a road hazard here. So we're going to pop these 17s off for this caliper mounting bracket bolt. As you heard, they were pretty tight, so you might need a 1/2 inch. The breaker bar here. After you get those 17s, you're going to want to grab these 2 10mm right here. Loosen those right up so you can swing the caliper out of the way. Alright, once we got that brake caliper swung out of the way, I like to go ahead and take this upper ball joint off of here. So we got to remove this cotter pin up here, and then it's going to be a 17mm. And then you can just break her loose. And these cotter pins generally need to be replaced because sometimes they are trash. Get the line out of there. And then just 17mm. Bust this guy loose. Wasn't too bad. After that upper ball joint's out of there, we're going to go ahead and take 32mm here and remove this axle nut with the air gun here. A lot easier with an air gun. After we've zipped that off there, I like to take these Phillips out of the rotor so we can get this rotor off of here, get a better idea of what we're looking at, and it makes it lighter when you got to move it over to the press. Alright, next we're going to take this cotter pin out and remove the 17mm nut on this outer tie rod end here. And then once we've got that out of here, we can go ahead and undo the lower ball joint, which is also a cotter pin and a 17mm. Go ahead and move right to that. Lower ball joint here. We'll pop these things out of here, get this spindle off of here, and show you how to do this lower ball joint out of these Honda spindles. So once we get the spindle mounted in the vise here, you can see that this ball joint has got a little snap ring on it. So we're going to want to go ahead and get that off of there. And then you can go about this a few different ways once you get the snap ring off. Some guys like to just beat these ball joints out of here, and that works. Or you can use a special tool. That also works. So it's pretty much up to you at this point, but you can see how sloppy this little dong is. Any kind of old part like this I like to spray down with a little bit of deep creep here from Seafoam. Works pretty dang good. We'll go ahead and let it soak for a little bit here, and then we'll try the old hammer method first, and then we'll get out the proper tool for the job if the hammer doesn't work in a timely fashion. Okay, so the hammer wasn't working, so we're going to go ahead and use a Snap-on special ball joint remover tool. Got it on there, right adapters, just going to head and zip her on. As you can see, it's just go ahead and knock it out of there real easy. Just how we like it. Sure, it's nice having the right tools for the job, but you can do that with a hammer, and you might have to use a torch, but they get in there real tight sometimes. Before we get this thing going back together here, I like to just hit this ball joint hole with a little bit of brake clean, loosen up some of that old dirt in there, and then Alright, now that the spindle is a little more cleaned up here, we're ready to put in this 3/5 ball joint here. I like to take the rubber cap off before I shove the ball joint in there, because sometimes there's not enough room for this rubber cap to go ahead and get in there. So be gentle, you don't want to rip the boot prior to installation, because, well, you're going to have a bad time. So let's go ahead and get this little ring off of here. And once you got the ring off, this rubber wants to go ahead and just come right off. She's ready to party. So now we're just going to go ahead and slide this guy right in there like so. And then find the certain adapters we're going to need to use the snap-on tool to reinstall this thing. Alright, once we got the proper adapters on there, I mean, all you pretty much got to do is run it down with the gun. It does all the work for you. You can see the work's being done right here, so just take a look. Then you should hear an audible change once it's fully seated, and then you'll take a visual after you get the tool off. There's the change in sound. Zip it off. And there you go. Now all we got to do is get this new snap ring that they provided here for us on there. Then we can put the rubber boot back on. There we go. Get the rubber boot back on. Then the ring. One ring to rule them all. Or something like that. And there we have it. It's ready to go back in the car. Install this thing. Okay, once we get the spindle back in there, we're going to go ahead and torque down everything. And it looks like the upper ball joint is 36 foot-pounds, tie rod end is 36 foot-pounds, and we're doing 45 foot-pounds on the lower ball joint here. And then the axle nut's going to be 146 foot-pounds. And the caliper mounting bracket bolts are 80 foot-pounds. And then we'll also do the tires at 80 foot-pounds. And these little guys are as tight as you can get by hand. You don't need to run them down with a gun or anything. They'll probably just strip out the hole. Well, that pretty much wraps it up. Now you're just ready to go for a test drive, listen for any kind of concerns or something you may have forgotten to do. So that's how to replace a ball joint. This is Matt over at STS Customs. I'm out.